Good afternoon and happy Easter, everybody. Welcome to Joy with Rev B. I'm Reverend Barbara Schreiner Trudel, affectionately called Rev B, and this show, Joy, is my new baby here on the New Thought Media Network. Joy is an acronym for Just One You, and every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, my guests and I will discuss the benefit of living an authentic life, the value of figuring out who we are and then being that. Sounds like a good idea, right? So I recognize that there's one power in the universe and there's only one thing going on, God or good. And there's a power for good in the universe and you can use it. In fact, you are using it right here, right now. Whether it's proving helpful or harmful to your experience is up to you. When we come to understand that each one of us is unrepeatable, each one of us is unique and special, each one of us is essential to the unfolding of the universe at this point in time. Wow. When we get there, we come to see the value of living an authentic life. The Joy Show with Rev B is about exploring the idea that there is just one you and just one of me. And although there's 8 billion people on the planet, it's 8 billion unique expressions of the divine. So I recognize that God, divine mind, universal one, first cause, spirit, whatever name I choose to give to the creator. What I know is that it is the source and the substance of all that is. Therefore, each and every one of us is made by it and from it, and we live, move, and have our being within it. And this show is really about the power of standing courageously in your unique self, letting who you are and who I am be fully seen. And yes, there'll be some people who don't like you or me, and some people who will like us. But rather than striving to fit in, we could strive to stand out, to be something great. So choose greatness instead of popularity. We could strive to be exceptional instead of fitting in. We could fly, we could soar, simply a choice. So our journey is filled with opportunities and possibilities, and it is valuable and important for each of us to live up to our true potential. This journey that we're on is such an exciting journey, and the Centers for Spiritual Living provide such powerful tools for transformation. And so, hopefully you'll join me again on Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern for CSL on the Lake and a beautiful inspirational service teaching science mind principles, which is so good. So we are coming up today with a great show. I am so pleased to introduce to you my beloved husband, Pierre Trudel, who is a comedic actor, brilliant, funny, does many voices, just a great joy to be around. So please help me welcome Pierre Trudel. Hello, sweetheart.
I'm getting paid for this, right?
No.
I got to talk to my agent.
I think you do. I think something has to be done about this for sure.
Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, honey. So tell me, you have been an actor forever. I mean, you were acting in high school and you just continued it right on through. And you do shows in both English and French. And one of the things that I always found really cool about you is that you can do pretty much any voice there is. I'll have to let you listen to a recording of Ernest Holmes. I'll bet you could copy his voice. Anyway, really glad you're here. Can you just share a little bit about your journey as an actor and what that's like? What are the joys of living that authentic life, but also some of the pitfalls that you've experienced?
Um, it really is the only thing that I've ever wanted to do, and that I know I can do, um, and that I'm good at. Um, I mean, I guess I could have gone down other paths, but I was always drawn to this. Uh, Genetically, I mean, it's in the blood, as it were, and in the DNA. I
Yes.
always like to think of the story many years ago when I was back in Saint Boniface, which is basically the French Quarter. It used to be a separate city from Winnipeg in Manitoba, but it is now part of Winnipeg, but it's still very much known as Saint Boniface, and it has probably the biggest. And I think it's still the case, certainly west of Ottawa, it is probably the biggest Francophone community in Canada. Very, very, and it has existed for probably since the early 1800s as a city. I'm sure before that it might have been uh, a community that just hadn't incorporated yet. Anyway, all this to say that for the past 200 years, there has been a thriving Francophone community, which extends into the arts as well. And I'm saying this so it explains the fact that both my father and my grandfather, his father, were performers and actors, although neither of them pursued it professionally. Dad was a lawyer and then a judge, and my grandfather was a doctor. Throughout their entire lives, the theater was a big part of their lives. And in my early 20s, I was doing a show, and a wonderfully talented makeup artist from Saint Boniface, Nadine Kelly, she was doing my makeup, where I was waiting to do my makeup. And she says, when it was my turn, she calls me over and she goes, Viens ici, Saint-Esprit, which means, hey, get over here, Holy Spirit. And I sit down and I go, why are you calling me the Holy Spirit? And she says, well, because I've already done makeup for the Father and the Son. So that is my favorite way of explaining how I come by it naturally. It's in my DNA. Unlike my father and my grandfather, I chose to do this as my career,
Has that been a
simply because.
challenge at all? Or
Pardon me?
has that been a challenge at all to
Oh, well,
try and
yeah,
do this
yeah.
full
I mean,
time?
on several levels.
Yeah.
But I think what it all comes down to is, do what you love, and the rest will come. And uh, I guess maybe that's where the New Thought has helped me with the rest will come part, because at times it has been challenging as far as making it viable as far as income is concerned. But I always come up against that belief that there's really nothing else I enjoy doing
I
as
know
much.
that feeling. There's nothing
Yeah.
I would rather do than teach science mind principles. So I get that. I get that completely. Now, one of the things that I've really enjoyed in the years that I have spent with you, and even from the beginning, just getting to know you, um, is how you were able to, sort of lead a crowd that, really weren't doing anything. And all of a sudden you get them all excited and enthused and in the game, so to speak, as you would be ready to perform a show. And I'm just wondering if you can, just be looking into the camera and share with us some of that wildness that you do when you're doing a performance.
I don't know if I can share any of the wildness. It's always, I've never, um, I appreciate you asking, but I think in a lot of ways, if I'm not performing, I'm a bit of an introvert.
Okay.
So I always feel uh, it's always hard to muster up that same energy that I do when I'm in front of a crowd,
Yeah.
when I feel like I'm only talking to you, if that makes sense. I can certainly talk about what I feel it takes from me to bring that to life. What uh, I think what you're talking about is what another thing I've been had uh, had great joy in doing over the almost 30 years now is audience participation. I've had the good fortune to work with especially two very funny men over the years, Rick Kunst and Nick DeCruff, in a trio and now duo called Men in Tights, um, where Rick brought this style of audience participation theater when he decided to become a permanent resident here in Canada. He brought um, his shows and taught both myself and then Nick how to do them. And what you're referring to, Barbara, is um, what we do in a Men in Tights show, as the name would imply. We are dressed kind of theatrically, more specifically like Shakespearean garb. And once we have our crowd assembled, we will tell them, we're about to tell you a classic tale. Maybe you know it. For example, Romeo and Juliet. Now, for the uninitiated, what they don't know is we are about to pick our Romeo, our Juliet, our Mercutio, and our I've forgotten the other guy's name.
And I have
It'll
no
come to me later. The two sworn enemies from either family. We're about to pick all of those roles from people in the audience, bring them on stage, give them some very simple but funny actions to do, and same thing with very simple to repeat lines, all based on the actual play. In this case, Romeo and Juliet. Now, to make sure that we've picked the right people, it what it takes is what you were alluding to before is going out and spending about 15 to 20 minutes warming up the audience. And that's not new. Many performers do that. Many performers will go out. Sometimes they'll send out another performer before them to warm up the audience, get their energy up, get them ready for the show. We do that too. We do it ourselves. But the other side of it is, while we're warming them up and getting them all excited about the show, we're looking out in the audience to go, that guy would be perfect for Romeo. She would be perfect for Juliet,
And you
et
always
cetera, et
pick
cetera.
older people, like you always pick like
Well,
senior
yeah,
for
don't give it
Romeo.
all away, Barbara, just in case they come to the show. But the idea is for me, something like the Men in Tights shows brings together like three of my loves. Sorry, I got to remember, you can't see my hand if I do this. So three of my loves: performing, improvising, and comedy. Um, because although we follow a script, for example, in this show, uh, depending on the person we've picked, they could say something different from what we told them to say, and we have to be ready to roll with it.
I think that's
So
what's kind of fun about your shows, though, is that, there's that unexpected twist that happens that you guys just kind of go with. It doesn't seem to throw you off at all. You just run with it. And I'm always fascinated at how easily it appears that you're able to do that.
well, part of it is, I mean, first of all, because we've spent time with the audience before,
Yeah.
you know, we're nothing is ever a guarantee, but whoever we've picked to play the different roles, we're pretty sure they're going to have fun too, because we never, it's like anything else. It's kind of, if you want to make a comparison to New Thought, you kind of want to make sure that you're choosing someone, in this case, to be in our show that is in the flow of things, that we on some level have connected, we have seen our oneness. It's really fun to talk about it this way because I've never really said it in words, but it really is a question of looking out at the audience and being able to tell, okay, this person I'm looking at is probably not an actor, has probably not done a lot of things on stage, but we share the same joy of laughing and wanting to have fun and not being afraid to try something different.
Try something new.
So that is, I think that's what, especially over the years, especially since I've known you and since I've become familiar with the teachings of New Thought, there's that extra level of knowing that I'm connecting with another human being, and this has always been important, is making sure that they know that I'm bringing them up on stage to have fun, not to poke fun at them, not to be mean-spiritedly or being funny on a mean-spirited level. Because if that ever happens, if you, in its own, it happened in my beginnings. If I would pick someone that I go, oh, okay, I know they're saying they don't want to be on stage, but I'll be able to convince them. And
Bad
that's a
idea.
recipe for disaster. Because if I go against my intuition, which was at first to go, no, they're not ready to come up. But my ego says, you'll be able to make them understand. It's almost guaranteed that it'll go wrong. And
It'll
it's
go
a
wrong.
perfect example of how, when one thing isn't in harmony with the others, everything else falls apart. So yeah, those shows are a great way to bring all of my talents and loves to the forefront, because, like you said, you have to be ready for something to not go according to plan and not panic.
Well,
I took
that's really an important part of it, right? Is that with the comedy that you do, it's really important to be able to just roll with what is, regardless of what's happening around you. That there's something that you can take from it, but you can't sort of stop what you're doing because there's been a glitch. Like, I remember years ago speaking in Calgary at the Center for Spiritual Living there. This was going back a number of years. And I had a dress on and my mic pack was attached to the top of the back of my dress. And it fell off. So now it's dangling between my ankles. So So I try to pull it back up, and of course, it lifts up the hem of my dress. So I'm like, darn. So I just looked down and I look out at the crowd and I went, oh, well, here we go. And just continued because you can't, you kind of have to laugh at it and then just let it go. So I would like you to, just to create some fun here, because the show is called Joy. I would like, I don't know, Sean Connery to show up.
But you've always told me in the past, whenever I do Sean Connery, it kind of freaks you out, Barbara. So I don't know why I should do it when you know it's going to freak you out.
The very first time you did that, I was so freaked out. It was like, stop it.
This is my most obscure. Not a lot of people will get this, but this is my most obscure Sean Connery line.
You're the man now, Bulldog.
What show's that from?
I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's a movie where he plays mentor to a young African-American student who everybody else in the world has written him off as a dummy. And he's the one that sees the true potential in him. It's a great movie. I wish I could remember the name, but God bless Google. Just by typing in Sean Connery mentor movie, I'm sure it'll come up.
It'll come up. What I love about that is because this show is about living authentically and about being who we are. And there's something really wonderful that happens when someone else sees our potential, sees who we really are, and acknowledges that, and is willing to just be with us where we are, when we are, how we are, whatever, without judgment or criticism or whatever. Like, I love that. Okay, so how about, okay, I know you're a big Simpsons fan, so how about Krusty? Krusty want to come and play with us?
Well, like Pierre said at the top of the show, am I getting any scratch from this? Come on.
Yeah, you'll get some scratch. I'll scratch your back. Well, what's fun is that.
Oh, what? Are you done with me?
I'm done.
I'm out of here.
Oh yeah, you're funny. You're funny. What? Finding Forrester.
That's it. Yes, thank you, Richard. Richard, my classmates
as well. Yeah, Finding Forrester.
That's exactly it. Finding Forrester.
Finding Forrester. So let's see. Who else can you do? You can do my son Curtis.
But that just amuses you. But I remember the first time.
Freaks him out.
Curtis. It really freaked him out.
That was pretty funny. Let's see, what else? What other voices do you do? Well, you do all kinds of accents. You know what I love is the story of when you were a little boy. Now, this was before your English got quite as good as it is now. And you got a hammer for Christmas or for your birthday. And you were telling your friends about it.
Well, see, I don't remember this story, but it tickled my dad so much because one thing to keep in mind about growing up somewhere like in Saint Boniface is it was a solid Francophone community, but also surrounded by a much larger Anglophone community. So you kind of learn, like my maternal tongue is French, and for the first 2 or 3 years of my life, it's really the only language I heard. And then as you alluded, Barbara, when I first started speaking English, there was definitely an accent there.
Come on, share it.
But so my dad just remembers one time where there's a couple of things you got to know to this story. Is my cousin's name was Chris. His name was Christopher, and everybody called him Chris. But as I was saying, hey, Chris, that is like, again, another, in French Canadian culture, to use anything related to the church, whether it's the name of Christ, whether it's objects used in the church for during a service, like a Catholic service I'm talking about, like the chalice or the actual altar, to use those words, which in French would be calice and tabernacle, and if you're referring to the Christ, you would say Christ. Saying terms like that is like dropping the F bomb or the S bomb in English. I know that when saying in English, like saying, G damn, that it's not, it has less impact now. But for my dad's generation, to say that in English was sort of like frowned upon. But saying things like Chris, Calice, Tabernacle, that, like I say, that had even more impact than saying something like, goddamn. It was like using the F word. So with that being said, what you're talking about, Barbara, is I had received a toy toolbox for birthday or for Christmas, and in what would soon to be known as the Jean Chrétien accent, as you all remember, the former prime minister, who was a brilliant man, but never lost his accent when he spoke English. When I went to see my cousin Chris and brag about this toy toolbox I got, I said, apparently in what was to become eventually a great Jean Chrétien accent, I said, "Hey, Chris, look at the hammer I got for my birthday." So,
That always makes me laugh.
of course, it probably sounded more like, "Hey, Chris, look at the hammer I got for my birthday."
Exactly. Well, we're going to take a short break. You are listening to the New Thought Media Network. I'm Rev B, and this is Just One You. We'll be right back.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience, or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
Well, I am really grateful to be here today and to have as my guest Pierre Trudel, my beloved spouse and comedic actor, funny man extraordinaire. And so he does all these funny voices, and sometimes he will teach me how to make sounds because the reason why, if you're speaking English, it can be hard to speak French is that your tongue doesn't do what his does. And so he has a way of discovering different accents and different ways of speaking just because he knows how to use this thing. I only speak English, but parlez-vous français? Un peu. So, Pierre, now when we look at, I mean, I love that hammer story because it just makes me giggle because I don't hear you speak that way anymore. Your English is very good.
Although some people tell me, like, I'll be, if I'm tired, it'll come out. If when I'm auditioning, because I'll often audition for the same part in English and in French, some will say, I don't pick up on it, but they'll say, oh, I'm hearing your French there when I'm speaking English. But anyway, sorry. For the most part, you're right. I mean, it is the result of growing up in a community like mine, a smaller Francophone community surrounded by a much larger Anglophone community. You wind up learning in my case, English almost by osmosis. And then, ironically, what can happen is your maternal tongue, for me, French, can start to deteriorate because, because most of what you're hearing outside the home is in English, outside the home or in my school, in my case, outside school, was mostly in English. Anyway, I just want to throw that in.
Yeah, and I think we've noticed that with our daughter as well. She also is being educated in French, and she speaks both French and English. She was on last week's show. And but what's interesting is she does feel stronger in English, living in a predominantly English city. I think she's just found that's sort of the easier one to communicate in, but she does go to school and learn strictly in French. So let's play with some of these accents because I think that's kind of fun, and it is a joy show. So what are some of the other ones? I know you can do like the Louisiana French accent and Parisian. Give us a little bit of French flavor in different accents within the French genre.
When speaking English, you mean? Well, quite honestly, I mean, thank you first of all for not lumping us all together in one group, because that would be, quite frankly, insulting. But, at the same time, you must realize that the French, like the guy that was just speaking there, he would think that anybody else that speaks en français, c'est pas vraiment en français. You know what I'm saying? You probably don't because you speak the English.
It just cracks me up when you do that. What about some of the other characters on The Simpsons?
I don't. You know what? I'm gonna keep it a crusty because that's the only one that.
What about
that I can? Sorry, I was just gonna say. Speaking about the reason I don't want to, although I know I can do the other ones, is many others do them much better.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it breaks down to, I remember an interview with Phil Hartman, who was a brilliant performer on Saturday Night Live, who also did accents and voices. And when they asked him, how do you do that? And he says, I can't explain it to you, but I just know what I have to do with my throat, with my tongue, with everything. Like if you take, so people that are gifted at doing many different imitations, someone like classic Rich Little. There's another performer. Oh, his name has escaped me. He has done over the years an entire adaptation of Hamlet using only the Simpson characters, and he does them all. And so, for example, I can't speak for him, but I know for me, when I heard Phil Hartman explain it like that, it's like he can't explain how he does the voices,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just he knows instinctually what he has to do with the different parts of his mouth, with his throat, et cetera, to be able to mimic the sound. And I go, yeah, that is exactly what it's like. Now, for me, there's only some voices that I feel that I can do 100%. Well, not even 100%, but close to the original. And it's because I just know exactly what has to be done. Others, you can. I remember doing a video. It was a corporate video, actually.
Were you
Pardon
thinking
me?
of Rick Miller? Marge just put
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
Rick
yeah.
Miller.
Thanks, Marge. That's exactly who it was. Thank you.
Thanks, Marge.
I did a corporate video a long time ago, seen by well over 5 people, and it was the director is I'd worked with before. He wanted me to do a whole bunch of different voices, some that I was very familiar with, others that I went, okay, I can do it, but I don't know if I can do it well enough. And I can remember with those just having to really work hard on them. So that my hat is off to someone like Rick Miller, because I'm sure talent plays a huge part in it, but and I can't presume, but some voices probably came easier to him, whereas others he really had to work at it. But for others, it's just it's like you just know exactly what I'm repeating myself now, but
you know exactly what to do. Me, not so much.
Yeah, physically, yeah, and it's kind of yeah, so I find it so funny whenever someone will come up to me who, let's say, is a surgeon and say, I don't know how you do it, remember all those lines and be able to say them and remember all the words. And a surgeon is saying this to me, someone who knows exactly what to cut and especially what not to cut. And I go, oh, wow, it's it kind of the same thing. We all have our talents and our specialties. Yeah. And it always amazes me when someone says, how do you do that? And I always put it back onto them and said, I wonder the very same thing about you,
Well, that's an interesting point, because I think so often we forget that there's something about us that's unique and special that no one else can do in quite the same way as we do it. And and then we're surprised when we see somebody doing something we don't know how to do. And it's like, wow, how do you do that? But the truth is, we all have something that is unique to us. And I think that's where this concept of just one you came from for me, is as a minister with the Centers for Spiritual Living, there's a sense of, if we could find our natural voice, if we could find, and by that I mean our true self, our nature, what happens is we would excel, or at least have a very joyful life, because we're doing what we love. And I think that's one of the things that I've always admired about you, is that throughout your life, regardless of, if money got tight, or if jobs were seldom, or COVID hit, or whatever was going on, that somehow you've always been able to really step up and step into this work that you do, and to do it with just great joy and love. And one of the things that you do that is so lovely is you play Santa Claus.
Oh, now you've done it. Now everybody will know.
Oh,
Sorry,
shoot.
sweetheart. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just in movies. Yeah. Well, in listening to some of the different things that you do and the way that you've done them, I'm always in awe at the accents and how you can move from one to the other with such ease. Like you can do a Brit, you can do a Scotsman, you've got your various French accents, all of these different things. So can you just for the next couple of minutes swing around from a few accents and just give us a sense of how those sound? Or I just, try to keep you doing something fun. You can keep talking, talk with an accent.
I'll give you history first, a little bit. For example,
I hate history. No.
no, wait a yes and, Barbara.
I know. I'm not an improv actor. Go figure.
So when I was a kid, back in San Boniface, back in 1972, CBC was showing for the first time in North America the show Monty Python.
Oh, I've heard of them.
And I was convinced that my dad and myself were the only people that knew the show existed. And we found it hilarious. Monty Python being a British comedy troupe, for those of you that don't know, because some people don't. And later that year, late in the summer of 72, I really bonded with someone that I'd gone to school with at that point for 6 years. I was in grade 6, going into grade 7. And I found out that he also had discovered Monty Python. And through that was my first experience with mimicking accents. And probably at the time, and it's especially to a Brit, it's probably still not very good. But I really, fell in love with the different accents that you were hearing on the show.
Everything from the Cockney, you know what I'm saying? You guys just talk like this. Or when the different members of the troupe would all of a sudden go into their old lady roles and talk like that. And then you would get the Yorkshire accent from people from the north, eh? They go to school and then they come home from work and then have supper and things like that.
And all those different accents, as well as the Irish accent or maybe even the Scottish accent, all came from just rolling on the floor, laughing, listening to these guys. And I think that's when I discovered that I don't know, don't ask me how I know how to do it. I just know I can't. And all I can say is I just love hearing different sounds and different accents and just have this ability to mimic them. And like I say, I mean, I'm sure, a true Brit or a true Scotsman or a true Irish person would go, not even close. But
okay, who is that?
But that's why I don't know. That was just somebody. But that's why if ever I would be in a show where I would have to portray someone other than a Canadian English or French Canadian person, there's such thing as dialect coaches to fine tune the accents. But I think if ever I were to be in that situation, what I bring to the table at least is an ability to hear something and be able to repeat it. It also helped that for a while in the early 90s, my girlfriend was English, And so I was able to have her help me do the different accents, especially the Yorkshire accent, because that's where her dad was from.
Deja was just asking you to try hers.
What's that?
Deja just asked for you
Oh, see,
to
see,
do hers. Or do
that's
it
hard because that's a tough one to do right without it sounding like a a cheap parody.
Oh, you can try.
It's hard, but yeah.
How about Elizabeth?
You know what? I don't know. No, see, I can't even. I'm so.
Sorry,
Part
Dave.
of it is I don't like doing an accent or a voice if I'm not sure of myself. And Mexican or Spanish.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Well, no, because then it becomes it's not that.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to do a poor job. That, for example, would be an accent that I'm pretty sure that I could do well with training. So maybe Deja, we could you could become my dialect coach for that.
There you go. So that's what'll happen when she gets back from Mexico. You can work with her for a little bit, and then you can come back on and do her. I'll interview Deja.
There we go.
You. You'll be the voice. We'll have to get you a little wig so you look cute like her. I love it. I love it. So, like some of the work that you've done, because you do a lot of different things. You do standardized patient work, which some people might not know about. And that's where doctors and pharmacists and whatever, when they're being tested, they have to have people they can work with. And so you pretend to be a patient for them to be examined so they can pass and become. So maybe you can share a little bit about that, what that work is like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a quote unquote day job for a lot of actors, because what it involves is like the name would imply, standardized patient, where you're simulating someone who has a condition of some kind. Let's say it's angina. So they need, the University of Toronto, for example, has incorporated. It's become a big part of the teaching curriculum to use mostly actors. There's people from all walks of life that do it to in a standardized way. In other words, it's not something where my improv skills come to the forefront, because you have to be standardized, whether it's me, whether it's someone who looks completely different from me. We all, if we're playing the quote unquote in angina role, we all have to have the same symptoms, the same pains, the same quality of pain. We have to be able to answer everything the same way. So yeah, that and portray it convincingly enough so that the student in question can then answer questions from their examiner saying, what do you think is wrong with this person? Because it's not like, the standardized patient comes in and goes, hello, doctor, I have angina. What can I do about it? It's more the other way around. It's to train the students to listen and find out, listening to what the patient is saying and describing and what they're eliciting from actual physical contact with the standardized patient, what they've got. So everyone has to answer exactly the same way.
Well, that makes sense.
It's almost like you're a living, breathing textbook You know,
I like that.
and
I like that.
yeah,
I'm
and
married.
it is one, especially in an exam situation, because there's the two sides of it. There's where the standardized patient is training and learning how to diagnose a person, and then there's the other aspect where it's part of their exams,
to do the
and they're being marked on it. So this is interesting, because I've found that as a performer, if, for example, you receive a training before, so you know exactly how you're to portray the role. You know that if the medical student asks you this, you say this.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in situations where the student has said, can you describe your pain? And I'll say, oh, it's dull, aching, and constant. And then they go, I'm making this up, oh boy, that sounds like you might have angina. And let's say it's something else completely. Maybe it's heartburn. And the performer in me wants to be able to cue them in the right direction, like it would happen if you're on stage with a fellow performer, where maybe they've forgotten their line, or maybe they've said the wrong line, and you, as a fellow performer, you want to make sure that the whole performance is put back on track. And what you'll do is cue them in the right direction with saying, whatever. You can't do that as the standardized patient. So that is a situation where, as an actor, you have to fight that desire to get them to say the right thing, because they're being marked on it at the end of the day. So yeah, it's a really interesting way of using my skills in another forum.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. And I like that, that, these roles that you're playing are very specific, and that, so your ability, this is one of the things that's always surprised me, is your ability to memorize stuff. Like, I have seen you get a script at, 7 o'clock at night for an audition at 10 a.m. the next day, and you're expected to be off book, and you'll go through it and just have it down. And the way you memorize stuff is like, I have trouble remembering my name, let alone memorizing an entire
Barbara
script.
Schreiner Trudel.
Oh, phew, thank you.
Jean Ethel are the middle names. Now I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Not so much for Jean, especially for Ethel. I've said too much. Anyway.
I knew it was a mistake to bring a comic on the show. It's just like when we got married, he had a friend of his read from the book of Corinthians. Love is patient, love is kind, da 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 da. And it was beautiful. And he does this beautiful reading. And then at the end, he goes, Corinthians, not just leather anymore.
Which was an allusion to a car commercial with Ricardo Montalban, who would sing the praises of rich Corinthian leather. Hey, there's my Spanish accent.
Deja, he found it.
I just had to think of Ricardo Montalban.
That's hilarious.
As far as memorizing, I know for me what helps is, again, it's like everything else. It's finding the flow in what's written and what you have to memorize. It's when it's really well written, it's really easy to memorize. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but one of the obstacles that's taken away is if there's a nice rhythm and you can find the rhythm in what is being said. I find that helps a lot to memorize something. So that's that's how it is, but it's always, and quite frankly, it's something I'm dealing with right now, and just saying this out loud reminds me of it, is when you look at a huge chunk that you have to memorize, it does look daunting. Every time I go to memorize something, I think, oh, they're right. people are right. How do I memorize all this? I can't do it. But then you just break it down into, you know, one line, one paragraph, and then just build on it from there. And
Yeah.
it's like everything else. It's something I'm having to apply right now to my performing, because traditionally in my career, I have believed others before believing myself. In other words, most of what I've gotten as far as work is from someone saying, Pierre, I've got this job for you. I know you can do it. Do you want to do it? And I'll jump into it, you know, 100%. And what my challenge right now is to be able to apply that to myself for work that I would like to self-produce. Yeah, that's my challenge, and I'm finding like everything else in life, one step at a time.
Part of the journey. Thank you, Pierre. This has been really, really great. And as we get ready to close this segment today, I just want to remind us that, we have at our disposal in the subjective mind a power that seems to be limitless. And this is because we are one with the divine on that subjective side of life. And that's where we are all one with each other. So the way that we think and how that we think, our thoughts are falling into that subjective consciousness and merging with the universal one. And that becomes the law of our life. So this journey that we're on, each and every one of us, it's unique to us. And the ways that we live and the things that we do and how we do them, each one of us does it a little bit differently. And today's show is just an example of that, just like the other shows I've done. We are creating a platform for unique and precious and beautiful individuals just like you to stand up and shine and share that unique perspective, whatever it might be. Because as we live authentically, as we trust in this power that is within us, we begin to create a life that is harmonious and fun and interesting. So let's remember that there is a power in the universe, infinite, creative, intelligent, everywhere present and all-knowing. And it's right where you are, and it's right where I am. And it is the energy of life. It is the vibration of possibility. It's all in the all. And we might call it God or spirit or universe, whatever the word. From our finite perspective, we can't even begin to comprehend it. But it is that special something that moves us and drives us forward. And we all have it. We all have it. We all have the ability and the potential to live from that grander vision. And we're created in the image and likeness of the divine presence or the divine mind or God or whatever you want to call it, Frank or Fred. Alice, somebody was calling it Alice. The dynamic energy of the universe is the only thing that exists. And the way it moves is through consciousness. It comes through my mind and through yours.
Barbara, can I just add one last thing on that note really quick? One of the best lessons I ever learned was from when I was taking clown, and my teacher said that there are no mistakes when it comes to actually doing a show. There are no mistakes. There are just gifts from the clown god. Exactly. And I've incorporated that into not only performing, but into life.
Exactly right. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Please join me Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern for CSL on the Lake. I love you. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Joyeux Pâques.